Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. I'm devastated, missing my child, and just hope anybody can relate to my situation. Need support. So I've, 32M, already begun divorce proceedings with my STBXW, 27F. I live in Kentucky and my STBXW is currently in Florida with our 14-month child. This is a very long story with so much drama, and this is also a throwaway account because my STBXW knows my Reddit account. I normally don't post online about myself, but I really feel so alone at this moment that I could really use some support. So a bit of backstory, but when I was 18 I was in an abusive relationship with a woman and we had a child together despite using birth control. She cheated on me multiple times, but the kicker was when she ended up cheating on me with my best friend, we'll call him James, and I was absolutely destroyed by this. I stopped talking to my friend for years, but eventually I pulled myself up and reached out to this friend. He talked about how we were so incredibly sorry and I forgave him. In my mind at the time, I had let this woman alienate me from all of my close friends and I just didn't want to lose my oldest childhood friend because of this. Sadly, this becomes relevant later. So, fast forward to the current day, I've since gotten custody of my 13-year-old son and was happily married. My wife comes from an extremely wealthy family, whereas I grew up impoverished and struggling with simple things like food security. My parents were divorced and I lived with my mom who received a disability. At 30, I had a good job running a land surveying operation with my dad who is a licensed surveyor. My wife was going to school for her bachelor's and I was working full-time while also working on getting my associate's degree. Things seemed relatively fine, but now looking back at it I'm noticing all these red flags that I ignored because I was in love. My wife struggled in school a lot. It seemed strange to me that she was struggling so hard, while I was getting good grades and working full-time. She used to get very upset with me for my good grades, so I would lie to her and tell her I got C's when I was really getting a nearly 4.0 GPA. I would try to encourage her and help her with homework, but this eventually led to me just doing her homework for her because she was too paralyzed to do it herself. Whenever COVID hit, my job suffered and I began making less money. We still were doing fine financially, but it was less. Even though she was on birth control, she got pregnant and we had a child together. When she was pregnant, this was when things first began taking a turn for the worst. Her dad died of COVID about 2 months before our daughter was born, and there was a lot of grief and mourning. Our daughter was born March 2021, and I took time off work to be as involved as possible with my daughter. I really wanted to have a strong bond with her, so I took months off, and when I did return to work it was only part-time. My wife was suffering from postpartum, and I had read online that the best thing to do when your partner is suffering from postpartum is to help as much as possible, so I did. I would routinely do things for my wife like make her breakfast in bed, and I took great care of my daughter. My wife has always been awful at doing chores. She never liked to clean, do dishes, or cook dinner, so we would pay people to come and clean our house, but since I was making less money now, these responsibilities fell on me. But these were all things I mostly enjoyed, so I happily did them, but after a while things started to weigh on me. I began going to therapy. I was initially diagnosed with bipolar, but that diagnosis was changed to ADHD and I'm now receiving proper treatment. My wife began doing very concerning things. She would accuse me of having an affair with my therapist. If I went to work, she would demand that I come home to help with our baby. She would tell me things like sometimes when she got really frustrated with our baby and she would have to fight the urge to shake her. I couldn't believe these things and I was scared. She was becoming much angrier than usual, which she's always been one to have anger issues, but things were getting, well, bad. There were several instances where she would do something downright horrible in front of my family and son, and I would have to apologize on her behalf and try to mend relationships, but going into detail on those would make my already very long story even longer. So problems came to the surface July 2021, where I woke up at 4 AM and she was screaming at our 4-month-old and rocking her, emo too hard, to go to sleep because she was crying. I sat straight up and told her to give me our baby and I would take care of her. Wife got kind of sheepish, like she was just caught. I told her she was scaring our child and she needed to give her to me. She did, and then she went to sleep. I took care of the baby and laid her back down, but I couldn't go back to sleep. I was really struggling to come to terms with what just happened. I went to work that day, and when I came home she wanted to confront me and defend herself, and I would just tell her that I couldn't talk to her ATM, I just wanted to take a shower and take my dog to his vet appointment and we could talk about it later. She followed me around, and I kept asking her to just leave me alone. I ended up going outside and she followed, yelling at me. I told her that she had anger issues and she didn't care about anyone but herself, and that she needed to act better. She stepped forward and slapped me, hard. I didn't hit her back or anything, I just kinda slumped and said, "Look what you've done now." Then I went upstairs and sat on the toilet, kinda crying but mostly in shock. She followed me up the stairs and I remember this very clearly because she never apologized. She was just trying to explain how she got so defensive and how what I said just made her so angry because it was similar to her abusive parents. I couldn't believe she wasn't apologizing and instead was defending herself. I didn't take my shower or anything, and I just left to take our dog to the vet. While I was at the vet, she contacted some of my family to take her to a mental hospital so she could get treatment. When I got back she was gone, was headed to the hospital, and she was just texting me telling me how sorry she was. She got diagnosed with postpartum and it took time, but I tried my best to forgive her and be understanding. When she got back, things were somewhat normal for a bit, but after about 3 days she asked me why I seemed withdrawn and I just said something along the lines of, "Well, it's hard for me to cope with the fact that you hit me." She started telling me that years ago I threw a hairbrush at her and she forgave me for it. I don't remember ever doing this, but all of a sudden this was being brought up and I would have to apologize for it to placate her even though I didn't remember doing it. Now I'm understanding that it never happened. Well, a few months later her stepmother in Florida was diagnosed with lung cancer and offered to buy us a $400,000 house in Florida. Now I live in Kentucky, so we would have to move down. It was exciting because my old friend, James, lived in Florida now as well and I would be able to see him again. We bought the house, but things became troublesome with negotiating the move with my 13-year son's mother, which I completely understood from her point of view. I began reconsidering the move, not wanting to give up my son. My wife began telling me that it's up to my son who he wants to live with, and if he wanted to live with his mom instead of us, that's his choice and I needed to give him that option. I was resistant to this at first, but she told me her mom and then her therapist agreed with her, and so eventually I conceded and gave him the option of coming with us to Florida or staying with his mom. He said he didn't want us to move, but if we did he would want to stay with his mother up here. Things got weird after he told me that. My wife got extremely upset and began yelling at him through the bathroom door while he was using the bathroom. He went upstairs and secluded himself to his bedroom. I felt terrible, and then my wife began blaming it on me, saying she never told me to give him that option. She insisted that she never said anything like that, and I eventually just gave up. So, things kind of settled down for a bit. My wife barely managed to get her bachelor's degree. She got in trouble for plagiarism, and so afterwards I was writing papers for her more and taking her tests. She graduated with around a 2.4 GPA. She also began taking Prozac and she said it would help with her anger issues. And TBH, I thought that she was improving. We began making a lot of plans. Since business was slowing down here, my father began working on getting his land surveying license in Florida and he ended up landing a pretty decent job with his first day being May 16th. We all went down to Florida at the end of March, and my father, son, and I came back up to let my son finish out the school year while my wife stayed in Florida with our 1-year-old daughter so she could visit her elderly stepmother with cancer, because she probably doesn't have too much time left. Again, things seemed relatively fine. I thought my wife was in love with me and I was in love with her. I was willing to give up my son to let her be closer to her family. My dad and I quit our jobs up here at the beginning of May, and he began preparing himself to go down there. He was going to stay with us for a little bit until he sold his houses up here so he could buy the empty lot next to our Florida home and build himself a house. My dad got down to Florida on Friday, May 6th, it's a 14-hour drive, and on Saturday, May 7th my wife called to tell me that she doesn't love me anymore, and that she hasn't loved me for a long time. I'm devastated at this point. I cried a good bit, but I got the impression that my wife was enjoying it, and it was slightly off-putting. She and I had been together about 6 years, married for 3 of those years, and it seemed hard to swallow. That evening I asked her if she was still wanted me to come down and she said sure. I asked her what we were going to do about our daughter together if things didn't work out. She said she wouldn't keep her from me, but she was going to stay in Florida with her. I was completely devastated. I reached out to friends and family, and they were pretty supportive. Turns out, my wife had been having an affair and had texted a friend about it, which she screenshotted and sent to me. I immediately contacted a lawyer to see what my legal rights were and began divorce proceedings. My wife, on Tuesday, May 10th, allowed our daughter to get into her psych meds and she had to contact poison control and rinse her mouth out, but around 9 a.m. she asked my dad, who was now down there, to watch our daughter so she could go have a me day. She was gone until around midnight. While she was out, she went to my friend, James, 2 hours away, and the affair went from an emotional affair to a physical affair. My dad moved out the next day. She didn't come clean about this affair until I figured it out, which I only figured out because James never responded to me when I told him I was filing for divorce. Before my wife came clean, she kept trying to talk to me about how she just wanted me to choose her, and how this wasn't sudden or anything. I told her that I was even willing to give up my son for her and that she was chosen, but now I'm not willing to do that, and that to me things were sudden because I was happy. Turns out she was just trying to absolve her guilt. So, here I am currently. I don't have my job anymore. I don't have a child. I don't have my father around to rely on. She has our car down in Florida. I'm not the homeowner like I expected to be. I had to pay for my lawyer using a credit card. There is a silver lining though, and that is due to the laws regarding child custody. The state that determines the custody of our 14-month-old daughter is Kentucky and not Florida. So she has to go to court and try to convince the courts to let her move with our daughter down to Florida. Meanwhile, my lawyer seems fairly confident that we can get sole custody. My STBXW is wanting to work things out and I'm just not talking to her at all. She keeps saying that she never wanted a divorce and that I went too far. She's since reached out to my dad and told my dad that if we work things out I have to remove my name off the deed to the Florida home, so the ownership is entirely hers. That her mother will always hate me because I'm a terrible person, but she just wishes I would come to Florida so we can work things out. She refuses to come back to Kentucky unless I drop the divorce proceedings. I have no intention of working things out. The worst thing about all this is that I can't bring myself to cry. I want to cry so badly, but when I do I just feel guilty for letting myself fall into this situation. If I hadn't reached out to James, then perhaps my wife would have never cheated like she did. What's worse is that I know she did it to hurt me. She knew about mine and James's history and picked the one person in the entire world to have an affair with that could deliver such a devastating blow to my confidence. Is there anyone out there that can relate to this? Why in the world you will have a friendship with James again in first place? Second, you made a right decision of divorcing her, move back to Kentucky, be with your son and daughter, she doesn't deserve second chance, and focus on your finances, brother. Best wishes from my side. Also cut off that sank James completely from your life. He did the same thing twice to you. Yes, I was confused why he would let that person back in. Like what the? Fool me once, shame on him, fool me twice, can't really put the blame on him. Crazy, best of luck up. Especially repair your relationship with your son. Apologize for leaving him and for STBXW yelling at him. Again, good luck. Yes, I mean you got ducked by him once, it's better to have no friends than having an enemy in name of friend. And yes, make up on your son in every way you can, especially because you didn't defend him when your wife was yelling at him, that was so poor of you. Oh no, I very much defended him when she was yelling at him. But you're right, I should have done more. Is it bad to say that I was afraid of her? I'll do everything I can to make it up to him, starting with divorcing my crazy abusive wife. He and I have a backpacking trip planned for this coming weekend and he's stoked. Well, that's a good trip and a verbal apology to him will be good, believe me, it will boost his self-confidence. Second, no, it is not bad that you were afraid of her, because you have been in a series of abusive relationships, so kind of understand why you were afraid, but now improve this part, understand that having more people in life is not important, but having good and loyal people is important. It's so ducked up because he was my best friend for my entire childhood. When that happened when I was younger, I never intended to forgive him, but after about 6 years and I could see how my first child's mother tried her best to nuke every relationship I had, both among family and friends, I felt like it was the right thing to do. He and I got really close again, and while he lived in Kentucky I would do things like drive him to his dad's nursing home while his dad was dying multiple days a week after work. I genuinely cared about this person like he was my brother. He confided in me things that he wouldn't confide in anyone else. I was there for him while he cried. Hell, he tried to have sex with me multiple times when I was single and younger. I know it sounds so ducking weird and I'm an idiot for thinking we were friends, because clearly we weren't. But duck dude, he was a groomsman at my wedding. That guy is really messed up. And especially after reading what all you did for him, brother, you should know it better and never let him in your life again. However much he apologized to you, never ever let him in your life again. And brother, it wasn't your first wife's fault, only your present wife's fault. He was equally or even more responsible for it than them, because you were there for him, things you did for him, and even you forgive him for the first time, then also he did it again. Never let him again. In the meantime, just invest yourself in your kids, especially your son, especially after what he has gone through. He was going to lose you, but also he was yelled at and humiliated at. Make this up to him. Cut off your best friend and your present wife completely. They are much worse than your first wife. Your second wife knew it, then also she had an affair with him. Shows how disgusting human being she is. Why do you think you're in charge of someone when you clearly have no authority over them? That's the thing I would try to think about myself if I was in this situation. Yeah. It's hard coming to terms with the idea that somebody who tells me that they loved me could pull the rug out from underneath just to hurt me so badly. I've been faithful to her and gave everything I had for this marriage, and I just wanted it to work. I'm not a perfect person by any means, but it kills me that she's now making up so much stuff to try and justify her affair. She's trying to paint me as an awful, neglectful partner and parent, and it hurts. Honestly, I don't think your wife has a good grasp on reality. She seems like one of those people who believe in my truth, which is actually just her opinion or anything she wants to tell herself to believe. Truth is indisputable facts. I'm sure there is a psychological malady that has a name for when a person believes everything they tell themselves, but I can't think of it right now. She had lied and gaslighted you on many occasions. The only thing you did was love and trust her. Isn't that what a person is supposed to do with their spouse? All this shit is on her. The best you can do now is look out for both of your kids. Good luck. Bro, go scorched earth on that !! yen euro h and take her for everything you can get, and when things settle down have someone, note I say someone, pay James a visit so he can understand the error of his ways. He's wronged you twice now and he shouldn't get away scot-free, just saying. And to all those who are gonna throw the he didn't make vows to you nonsense around, guess what? Sometimes lessons need to be sown into the flesh to be learned. Clearly he learned nothing the first time around. Just my opinion. Ha ha ha. I know it would feel like the right thing to do, but I got a kick out of it when I was talking to my therapist about it. She said, well, if you think about it, your friend has done you a favor by saving you from not just one but two crazy toxic relationships. I said, I guess I should thank him, huh? She goes, I wouldn't thank him. Lol. I guess that's true. But still the caveman part of the brain says otherwise. Hey man, that caveman part of our brains has kept our species alive for several 100,000 years. We shouldn't minimize it. I'm with you on this. Your so-called best friend backstabbing you twice with both your wife and previous woman. Why the heck you had him back in your life after what he did to you? Sorry to say, but more than your wife, you hurt yourself by having that snake back into your life. That's the truth of it. At the time, his dad had stomach cancer and was dying. I grew up with him, so I was close to his dad too. My previous partner had gone to really extreme ends to alienate me, such as faking scenarios where she would lead me to believe that my friends or family had stolen from me, but in reality it was her taking things precious to me and doing something with it. She systematically made all my friendships blow up one by one. I thought maybe he was innocent like the rest of my friends. Clearly he wasn't. The friend your wife texted to, was this James? She herself told you she was having an affair? No, she texted my aunt and told her she was having feelings for another person and had to process it. She denied it for about a week. I figured out the person she was cheating on me with was him because he just stopped contacting me altogether when I told him I filed for divorce. He normally texts me every day. Even on the day he was with my wife, he still got online to play games with me and my friends that evening. I just asked her bluntly, did you cheat on me with James? And she said yes, that it was a mistake and she felt like he tricked her and whatever else, and she wishes she could take it back and she'd do whatever she could to make it up to me. I haven't even spoken to her in about 5 days since she told me. I don't need that shit. Well, all I can say is I hope you learned your lesson and in future reduce your level of tolerance for backstabbing and domestic violence. Special place in hell for James. She wants you to come to Florida because she knows 2 things. If she steals time for 6 months, she can start to sue you in Florida and not in Kentucky. 2. You will lose the home advantage. Now comes the hard part, you need to prove that she is an unfit mother somehow without go to Kentucky. Can your father help you with that? And as for reconcile, tell her that if she wants that, she needs to prove that by actions. Sell the house in Florida and go back to Kentucky. Anything less than that means she is playing you. Anything that goes between you two needs to be recorded. And for your friend, if it was me, I would burn the world around him. I would tell everybody he knows how much he is a boss. I would tell all his friends and family that he is a home wrecker. I would find everything I can use to make him live a living hell. I even go as far to try and destroy every future relationship he will ever have. But that's just me, BC. I can. You don't need to use violence to do that. He did it to you twice. That is a super shite person. Yup. She thought she had me by the ball hairs because she left me without a job and had my child down in Florida. She was unaware of the 6-month rule. I was, however, and that's why I didn't wait a moment to hire the best attorney for the job. She never even talked to me about wanting to work things out until she had talked to lawyers and found out. And yeah, I agree, if she wants to work things out, she has to come up here. That's the only way. I don't want to work things out though. But until she comes up here, I know she's full of shit. I don't know the laws in your country, but if you can sue your boss of a friend, do it with all the things that you can. Show him no mercy. Burn his world until he will come begging for forgiveness. And then tell him to F off. There must be something you can sue him for. I really want you to take a look at your own judgment since your teen years. You basically set yourself up for this by making very bad decisions with friends, partners, academic cheating, etc. Once you operate with a sound mind, you can greatly protect your life and the lives of your children. Getting a divorce and sole custody sounds like sound decisions so far. I definitely have been reflecting on my own poor choices. I feel like an idiot for doing her homework, but it took her nearly 7 years to get that bachelor's degree, and we had plans for me go back to school when she got her degree. I ducked up when I was 18 and screwed myself out of college. I wanted to do everything I could to not prevent that from happening again, but I was just used and discarded. I'm doing everything I can to pick myself up for the sake of my kids. Trying to find a good job again is the first priority. It's hard whenever I feel so much shame and guilt for my poor stupid decisions. You are doing the right thing. Get this person out of your life. Fight for full custody and live your life. I understand you reached out to James, but how did your wife get in touch with him? Did you say, "Hey, my buddy James lives in Florida, maybe he could help us with our move. Here's his phone number/email"? Just curious how they made first contact. He lived in Kentucky 15 minutes away until about 2 years ago. I guess they must have exchanged information sometime then. She always let on that she hated him and didn't want him around. Like he would always get way too drunk and act like an idiot, so I would make sure never to have alcohol around when he came up. Interesting how she hated him. Man, that is duck up. Yes, my STBXW slept with my ex-best friend of over 20 years. She did it to hurt me as well. We have a 4-year-old daughter as well. They live in Ohio. She's cheated numerous times, but the last time was with another supposed friend, but he just played the game pretending to be my friend to get close to her, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I left, moved back to Wisconsin, and now I talk to my child when the ex sees fit. If I make her mad, she punishes me, but not answering for days, weeks, months. So now I'm a go for full custody, cause ain't nobody keeping my kid away from me. Plus a lot more to the story, too much to type. So to answer your question, yes, I feel ya, and yes, she's on bullshit, and no, don't go back, cause she's just gonna do it again. Get her kid and don't look back, and trust and believe I'm gonna do the same. Does any of her strangeness predate the pregnancy? If I were in your situation, I would have a paternity test for your daughter. It does. She's always thrown temper tantrums and has been generally hard for everyone to get along with. She's very neurotic, suffers from a lot of anxiety and such. She also has a cat that she was mean to, and I taught her how to take care of her properly so the cat could feel safe. One thing she would do early on is she would cut herself and leave razor blades on the sink for me to find so it would be obvious. She promised me that she would never do it again and checked herself into a mental hospital about 5 years ago over it. That was actually the first time she hit me. After we had our baby, she even started cutting herself again. Since we've separated, I've been researching about what a fragile narcissist is, and it's very relieving but also upsetting to me. She would always make me feel so bad for her. She'd swear she'd get help and things were going to be different. And for decent periods of time throughout the years, I did think she was doing better. I honestly think she's bipolar, but I'm not a doctor. I just know what I've been living with. Why in the world did you marry her then? Are you total mad or so? Prior to our marriage, it seemed like things were going well. She was going to therapy. She was taking my son to the zoo while I was at work and helping me teach him how to ride a bike. She supported me while I gained primary custody of him. I genuinely thought things were better, and I felt like she was the one. As things got worse, I guess I just held on to those nice memories expecting things to pass, but they just continued to get worse. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.